Whether it's YouTube, Android, or Gmail, it can be hard to go a day without using one of Google's hundreds of services. But one area in which the company has never managed to succeed is social media. Despite making a few attempts over the last decade, they've all ended in a waste of the firm's time and money, none more so than Google+. Once referred to as the Facebook killer, where did it all go wrong for the promising social network? What did Google+ actually do? And why was the service deemed a failure despite attracting an estimated 200 million users? Here's how it happened. Google+ was far from the company's first try at building a social platform. The first notable effort was Orkut, a website similar in functionality to Facebook, where users could send messages, update their status, or share photos for others to like and comment on. Orkut initially proved popular, but a security breach in which passwords and banking details were leaked, and a failure to moderate communities that promoted hate speech meant that its user base never really took off, and was blown away by the rise of Facebook. Then came Google Friend Connect, a data portability feature that allowed any website owner to turn their page into a social platform. Websites with Friend Connect enabled gave users the ability to log in with their Google account, showing them their friends using that same site and connecting their data so they could share the experience together, an aspect seen as a step towards the goal of being able to connect to any friend on any site. And thirdly, there was the short-lived Google Buzz, which was tacked on to Gmail and automatically added everyone you'd ever shared emails with as a follower, becoming slightly awkward for users who didn't want certain areas of their lives to overlap. Orkut's operations later moved to Brazil, where the majority of its user base resided. Friend Connect became exclusively for blogs, and Buzz crossed paths with Google+ at a time when the latter was becoming the company's biggest hope of challenging Facebook. So as all these applications started to flounder, more focus and resources were being poured into Google+, eventually resulting in the closure of all three of these platforms by 2014. So what's the story behind Google+? By tapping into the hundreds of millions of users already signed up for Gmail in 2011 and the 1 trillion Google searches that took place over the course of a year, the company was planning on Google+ finally becoming the genuine rival to Facebook that had eluded them so far. In the announcement of their new social network, Google declared that they believe online sharing is broken and that their service would offer a more bespoke, personal experience. One of Plus's flagship features that demonstrated this was Circles, a means of categorizing your online connections that gave you full control over who could see what information on your profile, without having to make a setting for each individual. Then there was Sparks, a visual way of finding pages that interest you with help from Google Images, and later Hangouts, the group video chat option that brought Circle members closer together. By the end of 2011, 90 million users had signed up for Google+, a respectable figure, but still way behind the 800 million members on Mark Zuckerberg's platform. After initially referring to the service as a social media website in its own right, Google swiftly changed its tune, labeling Plus as a social layer made to work across all its products. And with that, the Google ecosystem was growing at a rate that seemed endless, from productivity apps like Docs and Sheets to more everyday software like Translate, Calendar, and Drive. It was tricky to find something that Google's family couldn't do. So how did it all go so wrong for Google+? First off, the service became known as a ghost town. In spite of apparently boasting a peak of 500 million users, experts believe these figures were wildly inflated by inactive web surfers who were given no option. In 2013, Google made it compulsory for viewers on YouTube to make a Google+ account if they wanted to like or comment, and the same went for any Android phone users who wanted to use the Google Play Store. It proved to be a bad PR move, as creators claimed Google was trying to piggyback off of their own success to help its failing product, and consumers felt they were being bombarded with services they had no intention of using. And in another strange move, Plus stopped brands and businesses from creating their own Google+ Plus accounts to help keep the focus on individuals. The decision backfired and was soon reversed, as was their inherent link to YouTube and the Play Store a few years later. More user feedback revealed that the Circles feature was just confusing above all else, and that the mobile version of Google Plus was much harder to use than their Facebook and Twitter counterparts. Also, to become more streamlined and meet its new status as a social layer, several features like Hangouts and Photos were disentangled from Plus to become standalone services. The truth is that most users were already happy with Facebook and weren't willing to make a switch to a different site that they didn't understand. Everyday internet surfers considered Google as just a search engine, albeit the best one, but not as a social space to interact with friends. Google Plus went through a dramatic redesign, and from the outside, the service just seemed aimless, a problem that wasn't helped when Vic Gundotra, widely considered the creator of Plus, left the company in 2014. Google employees were then told that 25% of their annual bonus would depend on the success of Google Plus, leading many to push the product out to their friends and family, focusing less on the user experience and more on hitting uptake targets that projected a false image of the network's success. 2 data breaches later, which saw the private information of over 50 million users leaked to third-party developers, and Google Plus was closed to consumers in 2019, citing low engagement and trouble creating and maintaining a successful Google Plus that meets consumers' expectations. There was a brief replacement known as Shoelace, but that survived less than a year as the global pandemic proved a tough environment for new social apps. Business customers of Google Plus were transferred over to Google Currents in 2020. A recent member of G Suite focused on internal enterprise communication, whose fate could make for interesting viewing. For consumers, anything you had saved in your account, like photos or events, would be transferred over to the most relevant Google application, still saved under the same email address. The general consensus now is that Google Plus became known for doing a bit of everything, but not much of anything, and consumers struggled to see it as their go-to destination for any single activity. Gmail worked for receiving and sending emails, while Facebook provided a great venue for checking in on your friends. But Google Plus never found its own niche, or a reason for users to keep coming back. Do you think Google will have one more try at a social network, or should the company stick to what it knows? Don't forget to comment with your suggestions of future video ideas. That's how it happened, and thanks for watching.